We begin in the NFL with Thursday night football. It was a statement win for the Detroit Lions as the Detroit Lions beat the Green Bay Packers 34-20. The Lions have won 4 straight games against the Packers. For the Lions, Jared Goff, he went 19 of 28. He threw for 210 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. David Montgomery, Cincinnati native, had a sensational performance. 32 carries, 121 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. For the Packers, Jordan Love went 23 of 36. He threw for 246 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Here's Packers head coach Matt LaFleur after the game.
Give Detroit a lot of credit. They came in and they whooped us pretty good. I was pleased with our team's effort in the second half. I told them, I had challenged them at halftime that to just continue to go out there and compete. I thought we did that. We had an opportunity. It was down 10, and we had a bad penalty to make it a 3-possession game. But every area there's a lot of improvement out there for us. I think any time that you go out there and you can't effectively run the football and conversely can't stop the run, that's a recipe for losing football. And that's what happened tonight. And give Detroit credit. We knew they were a tough opponent, but they manhandled us really in every phase.
That was Packers head coach Matt LaFleur in the immediate aftermath of the Lions 34-20 over the Green Bay Packers. And so my biggest takeaway from this matchup between the Lions and the Packers is the Detroit Lions kicked the Green Bay Packers' ass. Point blank period. The Detroit Lions kicked the Green Bay Packers' ass last night on Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime Video for everyone who watched this game. We all witnessed a beatdown. The Lions' offensive line straight up punked the Packers' defensive line. Let me name some of the brothers on that Lions offensive line because they deserve a boatload of credit for this Lions dominant win over the Green Bay Packers. Center Frank Ragnow, right guard Graham Glasgow, right tackle Penei Sewell, left guard Jonah Jackson, left tackle Taylor Decker. Give that offensive line for the Detroit Lions credit because they dominated the line of scrimmage. When the Lions offense went up against the Packers defense, they dominated the line of scrimmage, completely dominated the line of scrimmage. And in the first half, that is where they dominated the game. Listen to these statistics from the first half of the Lions-Packers game last night. In the first half, the Lions outscored the Packers 27-3. The Lions had 284 total yards. The Packers only had 23 total yards. The Lions had 15 first downs. The Packers only had 3 first downs. Those 27 points that the Lions had in the first half, that's the most first half points versus the Packers in their series history. They've played 188 games. That 27 points is the most points the Lions have ever scored against the Packers in the first half. And overall, throughout the entire football game, I felt like the Lions were the better football team and they were the more physical football team. The Lions had 211 rushing yards. Shout out to David Montgomery, Cincinnati native, with the Mount Healthy High School here in the city of Cincinnati. David Montgomery was balling. 32 carries, over 120 rushing yards, averaging 3.8 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns. For whatever reason, David Montgomery, he seems better now that he's in Detroit compared to what he was in Chicago. I see a different player in David Montgomery since he's been with the Detroit Lions that he wasn't with the Chicago Bears, but it could be because he was in a pathetic organization in the Chicago Bears. Now he's with the Detroit Lions. You got Jared Goff as your quarterback. You got Dan Campbell as your head coach. So there's some stability in that Lions organization, and we're seeing David Montgomery capitalize off of it. He was the player of the game in my eyes. He had a sensational performance, but it wasn't just him. Reynolds, the receiver for the Lions, 3 receptions, 69 receiving yards. St. Brown, 5 receptions, 56 receiving yards, 1 touchdown. The tight end for the Lions, Laporta, 4 receptions, 56 receiving yards. The Lions offense dominated the Green Bay Packers defense. And I got to give Jared Goff some credit because I've been critical of Jared Goff. I really, really have. And you look at Jared Goff so far this season. Jared Goff, 6 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 1,029 passing yards. He's completing 70% of his passes. Jared Goff, he's not an elite quarterback, but he is a good quarterback. For years, I had my questions about Jared Goff. And when the Lions traded Matthew Stafford to the LA Rams and they traded and brought back Goff in that deal, I said the Rams won that deal. And I still feel like the Rams got the better player because they obviously won a Super Bowl with Stafford, something that they could not do with Goff. But Goff did get the Rams to a Super Bowl. They just weren't able to get over that hump. But Jared Goff is a quarterback who stabilizes your organization. In primetime games, Jared Goff is 14-8, and over the last few years, he's been the best quarterback in the NFL against the spread. So most gamblers out there, when they see teams going up against Jared Goff, opposing teams going up against Jared Goff, they go and they pick the other team to win because they sleep on Jared Goff, including myself. So I have to give Jared Goff some credit. Jared Goff has led this Detroit Lions team to a 3-1 record, and they right now are the team to beat in the NFC North. No doubt about it. And then even defensively, last night, they completely controlled the game. When the Packers offense was against the Lions defense, the Lions defensively controlled that matchup. Last night, the Lions had 5 total sacks, and they end up forcing 2 interceptions from Jordan Love. And I feel like in the 4 games that Jordan Love has played, this is the worst performance that he has had. And it's because of that Detroit Lions defense. Aiden Hutchinson, the Packers offensive line had no answers for Aiden Hutchinson. 0 answers for Aiden Hutchinson. He's the draft pick from Michigan a few years ago. He was great even at the University of Michigan. So he's a Michigan kid. And I love that story from Hutchinson because Hutchinson got a chance to play at Michigan, and then he gets drafted by the Detroit Lions. So he's familiar with that area. They love Aiden Hutchinson up there in Detroit. Aiden Hutchinson is a top 10 defensive player right now in the NFL. But Benito Jones, Charles Harris, and they got linebackers and Jack Campbell and Island Zone as well, number 34 for the Detroit Lions, who played well last night. This is a Lions team that did not have C.J. Gardner-Johnson last night, and they had one of their defensive backs in Brian Branch get injured. And they still frustrated Jordan Love all night long. Give the Detroit Lions credit. They are really playing some great football right now. They've beaten the Packers 4 times in a row, and Dan Campbell has Matt LaFleur's number right now. We got to call it like it is. Dan Campbell has beaten Matt LaFleur the last 4 times they have faced off against one another. And you look at Dan Campbell since he's been the head coach of the Detroit Lions. His record is only 20-29. Well, 20-29-1. He has 1 tie on his record. So he's only won 39% of his games. But the way that this Lions team has been built, they have really, really solidified that offensive line because they brought in Penei Sewell. He is one of the top 5 draft pick, I believe, a few years ago. So he was a number 1 overall went in the first round. Not number 1 overall pick, but he went in the first round. And they have solidified that offensive line. And Dan Campbell, he preaches toughness, and this Detroit Lions football team is tough. They literally pushed the Green Bay Packers around all night long. And so I was listening to Aiden Hutchinson after the game in his interview, and this is Aiden Hutchinson. He said, I grew up with Aaron Rodgers kicking our ass every year. Aaron is out of the division, so life is good right now. That was Aiden Hutchinson on the Lions-Packers rivalry in the NFC North. It ain't a damn rivalry right now. It is not a rivalry. The Detroit Lions are the class of the NFC North, and we're going to see what happens as the season goes along, but they've definitely been the best team so far in the NFC North. And you look at the NFC North overall, the Vikings, it's a great possibility that they're going to be moving on from Kirk Cousins after the season. The Bears, they don't have a quarterback. Justin Fields has not lived up to expectations, and the Packers are still trying to figure out if Jordan Love is their franchise quarterback moving forward. So this is a perfect opportunity for the Detroit Lions to prove that they are the class of the NFC North, and it started with a statement win last night against Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers. Give them credit. And this is the Lions' schedule over the next few weeks. Week 5, they are home against the Panthers. They'll be favored in that game. Week 6, they got to go to Tampa and play Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They'll be favored in that game. Now, Week 7, they are in Baltimore against Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. I would favor Lamar and the Ravens in that game, but that's a game the Lions could win. Week 8, they are home against Jimmy G and the Las Vegas Raiders. So over the next 4, they got a bye in Week 9. Over the next 4 weeks, they're going to be favored in 3 out of their 4 games. So they're going to have an opportunity to build some separation between themselves and the Packers or the Vikings, whichever team is in second place in the North. Give them credit. Now, when it comes to the Green Bay Packers, Jordan Love, this was his worst performance in the 4 games so far this season. Like, he had 2 interceptions. He went 23 of 36, 246 passing yards. Jordan Love didn't play well in this game. But we have to remember and also add context to why he didn't play well. You look at the Packers right now. They got 2 starting offensive linemen who are out, David Bakhtiari and Elton Jenkins. These are 2 of the Packers' best offensive linemen. And I feel like because they don't have Bakhtiari or Elton Jenkins, it's really affecting Jordan Love and this Packers offense right now. It really, really is. And I feel like overall, the Packers in prior years, they've always had good offensive lines. But this year, they're struggling up front. Center Josh Myers, John Runyon's the right guard, Zach Tom, he was getting destroyed last night. Rasheed Walker also was getting beat every single play. They could not contain that Lions pass rush at all. Rasheed Walker was awful last night. And Royce Newman, he was getting beat at the point of attack. And that's the reason why the Packers weren't able to run the football last night. For the game, the Packers only had 27 rushing yards. 27 rushing yards. Now, one thing I have to criticize Matt LaFleur for is only giving Aaron Jones the football 5 times. Aaron Jones last night, he was active, and he returned after missing 2 games. Aaron Jones, 5 carries, 18 rushing yards. You got to give your best players the football. It's inexcusable for Aaron Jones to only have 5 carries. Come on now, Matt, what are you doing? If you want to take some pressure off of Jordan Love and you want to try to stop that great pass rush from the Lions last night, because it was great last night, you have to run the football. Run the football, Matt. You got Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. I know people don't really like the way A.J. Dillon has been playing this year, but A.J. Dillon is a power running back who runs behind his pads, You got Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. Run the football and take some pressure off of Jordan Love. That made no sense to me. But all in all, that Lions defensive line dominated the Packers offensive line. And again, would the Packers have protected Jordan Love better if David Bakhtiari and Elton Jenkins played in this game? I believe so. I do believe that they would have protected Jordan Love better, and they could have had Jordan Love play better overall if he was protected. But again, he didn't play great last night, but I'm not going to pretend like, oh, Jordan Love is a bum. He's not the franchise quarterback for the Green Bay Packers moving forward. We got to be patient with Jordan Love. We got to be patient. And it's crazy because when you look at Jordan Love's numbers, he doesn't play well in the first half, but he plays great in the second half. Look at his performances so far in the first half and in the second half. In the first half, he's completing 47% of his passes. In the second half, he's completing 63% of his passes. In the first half, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. In the second half, 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. His yards per pass attempt in the first half, 4.8. In the second half, 8.4. Passer rating in the first half, 66. In the second half, 104.7. So he's playing better in the second half. Usually, young quarterbacks, they play better when they're on script. And on script is in the first quarter when the coach has 20 to 25 plays already designed for the quarterback to be successful. Usually quarterbacks play well in the first half and they struggle in the second half. It's been the exact opposite with Jordan Love. He's hasn't played well in the first half, but he's played pretty good overall in the second half. But I felt like also a key moment in this game was the Lions drive in the fourth quarter. The Packers had cut the Lions lead to 10. It was 27-17. And as a Packers fan, I was thinking, we got a shot here. We got a chance if we can get a defensive stop. And in the fourth quarter, on the Lions touchdown drive, they go 14 plays, 75 yards, 6 first downs, and they had 8 minutes and 52 seconds of time of possession, and they finished off the drive with a 1-yard touchdown run by David Montgomery. So that, I thought, was also the biggest drive of the game. Because if you give Jordan Love and the Packers the ball back down 10, the Packers gain some confidence, and they feel like we might be able to win this game, reminiscent of what happened 3 days ago when they played against the New Orleans Saints. But again, I still feel like Jordan Love, through the first 4 weeks, has played well. But last night, with that offensive line struggling the way that they did, I'm not ready to say that the Packers should consider moving up in the draft next year or trying to go out and search for a quarterback for the future. I feel like you still got to remain patient with Jordan Love and see what happens moving forward. Now, here's the Packers schedule over the next few weeks. Week 5, they're in Vegas to take on the Raiders on Monday night. That's going to be the first game that Devontae Adams has played against his former team. And then week 6, they have a bye. Week 7, they're in Denver against Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos. That's a winnable game for the Packers. Then week 8, they are home against the Vikings. Week 9, they're home against the Rams. They got to get some players back healthy. No David Bakhtiari last night. No Elton Jenkins. No Devondre Campbell on defense. And no Jair Alexander. And I feel like for the Packers to compete with the Lions, because that's who the Packers are competing against now in the NFC North. I know the Minnesota Vikings won the division last year, but the biggest threats to the Packers in the NFC North is now the Detroit Lions. They don't need to worry about the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota is in the rearview mirror. I don't think Minnesota is going to be in the playoff conversation as we get closer to November and December. So the Packers have to figure out a way to beat the Detroit Lions, and they need to be more physical up front. That's the way you beat Detroit, because Detroit plays big boy football. We got to call it like it is. And they literally punked the Green Bay Packers last night at Lambeau Field on Amazon Prime Video for the nation to see. Give the Lions credit. Right now, they are the team to beat in the NFC North. My beloved Packers have a long way to go.